If you missed number 1 on the test, here's an example similar to it. Number 1 on the test is asking you if it's a linear or an exponential function. Remember that linear functions, you're adding or subtracting repeatedly for the y values. Here, when we look at these y values, from 4 to 12, 12 to 36, and 36 to 108, if I were adding repeatedly, I would be able to see that 4 plus something gives me 12, and 12 plus something gives me 36. Since that's not the pattern here, I would check to see if it's multiplication or division. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36, and 36 times 3 is 108. And you can check those in a calculator. So you could do 4 times 12, or excuse me, 4 times 3 to get 12. You can do 12 times 3 to get 36, and so on. You could do 36 times 3 to get 108. So when you do that multiplication, that tells you that this is exponential. Now, another thing is number 17. If you missed number 17 was asking you to find the base. This times 3 each time, that is your base. Let's look at the next most missed question. The next one was number 3. This one was saying that you had depreciation. This one was saying that you had a number of crickets. And in this one, the reason that most of you missed this one is because it says how many crickets will there be after 2 years, but in the problem it says X represents months. So if you have these two different words, months and years, you have to make them match. So on the test, it says after 2 years. Well, 2 years is going to be how many months? You've got to figure that out, and that's what you plug in for X. So on your test, you actually already had the equation given to you, so you had something already set up like this, and you had to plug in the X value. So here, if we just plugged in 3 would represent a number of years, but we need it to be a number of months. So we can't put in 3, we have to make it 36, because there's 36 months in 3 years. So whatever it says for your percentage, 20% per month, or on your test it says crickets per month, then you need to make sure that whatever you plug in for X is a number of months. All right, let's see what the next one was. I guess that would be number 9 on your test. Okay, number 9 on your test, if you have that pulled up, it's asking you about a tractor that depreciates by 6% and how much is it worth after 6 years. So here we have a car depreciating and it's asking you how much it's going to be after 6 years. So first you have to know your A value and your B value, because you have to write an equation that looks like A times B to the power X. So A is your starting amount. So our starting amount is 2,100. So that's going to be Y equals 2,100. Then we have to figure out what goes in the parentheses. That's our base. Well, your base, if it's depreciating at 15%, our base is going to be 1 minus 15%, and 15% is 15 over 100. So we have to calculate what is 1 minus 15 divided by 100. So first start with 15 divided by 100. So our base is going to be 1 minus 0.15. And when we calculate 1 minus 0.15, that gives us 0.85. So your base is going to be Y equals 21,000 times 0.85. Then it says how much is it worth after 6 years, so you're going to put in your exponent 6, and that's what you're going to type into Desmos. Whatever your question was on your test, use that information on your test and set up this similar process. The next one is number 11, was very commonly missed. Okay, even if you didn't know how to do this problem, there are a couple of things that you could have used to help get you on the right track. On the test, it said that there was a car purchased and it was depreciating. So anytime you see that decrease or depreciate or decay, that means that your base has to be less than 1. So immediately, even if I didn't know much about exponentials, if you at least remembered that decay, decrease, depreciate means that your base, the number in parentheses, needs to be less than 1. 15,000 is not less than 1, or 1,500 is not less than 1. 1.23 is not less than 1. So even if you had no idea what this meant, you could at least eliminate some answer choices. On your test, there are a couple of answers that have bases that are less than 1. So to find what that exact number needs to be, you have to do your base is how much less than 1 is that percentage. So if you have a growth or decay rate, you have to do something with it to get the base. So remember, our base is either 1 plus or 1 minus. If we have decay, it's going to be 1 minus. And we have to turn that percent into a decimal. So we divide 23 divided by 100. So that gives us 0.23. So 1 minus 0.23. And that is 0.77. So your base, if it's decay or decreasing, you have to do 1 minus that number to get your base. And that's how we would have ended up with C. On your test, you would have to use that rate, do 1 minus that percentage turned into a decimal, and see what you would get for your base. Number 12 was commonly missed. It was asking what is the rate, so it did not give you the rate in number 12 on your test. On your test, it gives you an equation. It says what is the rate in which the birds are decreasing each year. In this example, we have tire pressure, but it's still asking that question, what is the rate of decrease? So if you have your base, 0.78, that isn't your rate, but it helps you find the rate. So this number, 0.78, is less than 1, so we're going to say 1 minus this number and see what it equals. 1 minus 0.78 is 0.22. Then you're just going to turn that into a percent by multiplying by 100. So it's going the opposite direction of what we just did in the last one. So that equals 22%. Not 0.22%, but just 22%. So on your test, you have your base is 0.93. You have to see how much less than 1 is that. So you have to do the subtraction and then multiply by 100. Okay, there's a couple more that weren't exactly like ones on the review, so we're going to look at a couple of examples. For number 10, if you missed number 10 on your test, let's look at number 10. It gave you an equation. It asked these 3 questions. Is it growth or decay? Well, growth or decay, look at the base. This base, 1.16, it's bigger than 1. So if it's bigger than 1, then that's going to be growth. What's the initial value? The initial value is your A. A is the number in front, and that's 2. What's the percent rate? So to find the rate, that's how much bigger than 1. So 1.16 minus 1. Calculate that. It would be 0.16. multiply by 100 to get your percentage. So that would be 16%. Number 13 on your test. Let's have a look at that one. This one was, it says that there's a population. They give you this equation here to represent the population. And the question is, what is the initial population? So my guess is that you looked at this and you were trying to plug in some number of years and calculate a total value, but it's not asking for a total value after so many years. It's just asking for the initial value. That word initial, that's your A value. So what's your A value in this problem? This is y equals a times b to the power x. Your A value is just that number in front. So don't overthink that one. It just says, what is the initial population? What's the initial value? That's your A. I'm going to glance back through these. I think those were the only ones that were really commonly missed by a lot of students. So if you missed any of those, you can rewind this video and watch it as you're going through your test corrections. Make sure that you show your work and turn those in when you're finished.